I'm not selling modules. I'm not selling videos. I'm not selling coaching. I'm not selling a community. I'm not selling software, right? I'm selling an outcome, right? And the reason why I'm doing that is because outcomes are a whole lot more valuable than a bunch of digital products.
Welcome, and today our guest is Omar Zenhom. He's the co-founder of WebinarNinja, host of $100 MBA podcast. He's got a pretty cool story. Started out as a high school teacher, transitioned to an entrepreneur, was creating courses and selling those via webinars, and then realized he pretty much bolted together a whole bunch of different services. It was clunky, and he ended up just going, you know what, I'm going to build my own solution. Now, back in 2018, his company WebinarNinja was named one of the fastest growing SaaS companies, and that was before the pandemic. So he's been growing in leaps and bounds since then. Obviously, everybody moving online and running webinars is, just been great for the business. That's not to mention his podcast, one of the best business podcasts going around with over 190 million downloads. Very much an in the trenches guy, knows his stuff inside and out. I got to know him really well as we were sailing around Tasmania together in a mastermind. And then I bumped into him and his partner again at an airport in Cebu on the Philippines. And I kept him awake, talking his ear off for a few hours as we flew to Singapore. Long story short, he's most definitely one of the good guys. And today he's going to be sharing his automated sales system, which is right in our sweet spot. We love talking about systems. We want to prove that those systems work, and then we want to automate and scale those. So without further ado, welcome aboard, Omar.
Thanks, David, for being here. And thanks for that intro. But my favorite part was one of the good guys, because one of the things I remember the most when I was coming up as an entrepreneur, people that I looked up to, the people that actually were kind to me and gave me the time. And I always remember that whenever I get the chance to kind of speak to somebody or have the honor to be on stage or something like that, is the Chris Brogans of the world and Michael Ports. These people were so nice to me when I was coming up, and they were such a big deal to me, and I'll never forget that. And that's one of the things that I really loved about that intro.
Yeah, good. And it's on point. Most definitely. I get that vibe from you, and you're always so sharing and always accommodating. So I'm super keen to peel back the curtain on your automated selling system, because I think there's some real key insights there that we'll be able to take from that.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't mind, I can just jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it. I kind of do those intros, and then I do the intro, so that way we can
Yeah.
jump straight to the good stuff.
Well, you mentioned I was a teacher for 13 years, and that was my first career. I was a high school and university teacher for 13 years. A lot of what I use today in business, in sales, in automation, all that kind of stuff comes from my days of teaching. I have a master's of education, but more importantly, 5 times a day, 5 days a week, I had to convince 30 bodies to do what I say. That's what my job was as a teacher. I had to kind of convince them that this is important. You got to learn this so that you can pass the test so that I don't lose my job, right? So people don't really understand that really teaching is a sales job, right? You have to sell them on the concept that you're teaching. And in order to sell anybody on anything, you have to build trust. You have to build a relationship. And you'll notice that it's really weird and awkward in the first few days in school. Teachers don't know the students don't know the teachers, but over time they build this bond, they build this trust. And if you look back when you were in school, you did best in the classes that you really liked the teacher, right? That you've built a relationship with. I used to use all kinds of things, guilt and bribery and all kinds of things at my disposal to get them to do their homework and to study and say, hey, I thought I thought we had something going here. I don't know why you didn't study for this exam. I was expecting more from you. Oh, I'm really sorry. And that only works if you have a relationship, right? So what does this have to do with business? What does that have to do with sales? What does that have to do with anything in business well, we don't buy anything from anybody unless we build some sort of trust with that company, with that person, with that brand. And a lot of us, we think if we just create the best product possible, if it's good enough, if it's different enough, if it's unique enough, then we're golden. And the fact of the matter is that that's just not true. Like, you just can't have a great product and just let it happen and all of a sudden you're going to be a billionaire. No. What happens is, in any business, big or small, you have to create opportunities to build trust. You have to create opportunities so you can build a relationship with that audience, with that customer, with that potential student in your course, with that potential coaching client, with that potential user for your software. So you can't just put up a sales page and just expect them to watch a video and be like, okay, that's how you have to have a sales process. And basically what I learned in my experience in teaching, but also from my dad, who was in sales, the reason why I went into teaching, because I had this, like, I don't want to get into business or sales because I saw the up and down nature of business. One summer holiday, we're going to Disney World, the next it's the backyard. So I really learned a lot though, because I used to go to work with my dad. He was a car salesman. And I used to learn a lot about why does he do things like this? And I used to ask some questions and I didn't really understand him, but some of the stuff seeped in throughout the days. And one of the things I learned from him is he used to tell me, listen, if you want to get somebody to buy something, you have to understand what they value, what they actually want, right? So for example, if somebody would come into the dealership and instead of showing them, oh, this is the latest model and this is in cherry red and look at the beautiful carpeting and the leather, he's like, I don't really know if they care about that. So the first thing as I do is I ask questions. I say, hey, what brought you here? Why don't you like your car right now? That looks like a nice car that you drove into, right? They might say things like, oh, I really hate the fact that it doesn't have enough horsepower, or I really don't like the sound system, or it does horrible gas mileage, whatever. These are the pain points they have. This is why they're in the market. So there's no real reason for me to even talk about any other feature in this car that I'm about to sell them. If I'm going to show them the car with the best sound system and the best gas mileage, right? So I learned that from him in a way, and I kind of cobbled that together, my teaching experience. And what I wanted to do in my own business is I wanted to have some sort of sales process where slowly I can prove myself to the customer so they can say, you know what, these guys are not bad. And it starts with education. It starts with some free things. It starts with a little bit of entry level product where they're parting with their money a little bit. And it goes on and on and on and on. And that's kind of how I kind of frame it. It's like, how do I build this relationship so that, yes, my end goal is that we're going to get married and we're going to live a happy ever after and we're going to retire when we're 50 together on a beach or whatever it is. That's the long-term view. But right now, I first just got to ask this person out, right? First, I got to go through the steps of building that relationship with them. So yeah, that's kind of the
Yeah.
theory of it.
Yeah, I love that. Give some good insight into where it's come from and probably why you've made certain decisions that we'll see present themselves in the system as well. So this is something then, I mean, it could really work for any business. Like I'm assuming this is just a trust building exercise, introducing into the business owner's world what it is that they do and the products and services that they offer.
Yeah.
So I could see this universally applicable.
So it's definitely universally applicable. And it's actually advantageous for anybody who teaches for a living. Like if you are a coach or a course creator, or you create content, or you're a consultant, like you have a huge advantage because by you performing and adding value to that person's life, you are proving to them quickly that you can be of value to them if they pay you. But it works with any business. One of the examples I give often is this is usually like the entry level product for Apple. Like I have AirPods. I have two pairs of AirPods. I have a iPhone. I'm on a MacBook. I got another MacBook over there. I got an iPad, right? I'm wearing an iWatch. Didn't happen by accident, right? I started out with, one product. I built trust with them. I was like, it's pretty good. I need a new laptop. Might as well try this Mac thing. This is like over a decade ago. And then, okay, I got the Mac now. All right. My phone died. Let me look at this iPhone that just came out. This is how it happens. We sometimes forget that we are consumers ourselves, but when we start selling things, we just forget about how people buy. This is how people buy. People buy in steps, in increments. And it took a lot of touch points. You saw an ad, you saw a friend at a cafe. What is that? Oh, is that the new iPhone? Okay, what does that look like? And it just takes a while to build that trust. And this is the thing, like you have to build the system now because time is on your side in the system, meaning that the longer you do this for, the more trust you're going to build, the more people are going to go through the system, the more customers, and it becomes kind of a snowball effect because the more people that you go through the system, the more you get better at the system, but also the more those people recommend you to others.
Yeah, I love this. And what I like about the work that you do, like I've always remembered, back in my classic direct mail, learning early days when I got started, they talk about this idea of it's salesmanship in print. And the good thing
Mm,
about like classic direct mail is you capture your selling method into some written form, and then that can be mailed many thousands and hundreds of thousands of times, and there's great
mhm.
time leverage there. And then for the work that you do with webinars, it's kind of like that next level up. It's kind of like salesmanship in video format,
Right.
which makes it even easier to connect. So just to kind of connect those final couple of dots, what we're talking about, how do you deliver these outcomes through webinars? Like what,
Yeah.
yeah, how does that fit into the picture?
So I love the idea of inverse thinking, which is a concept that Charlie Munger talks about, where like if you want to accomplish something, think about the opposite. So here's an example: like when I want to sell my software, WebinarNinja, right? Instead of me asking myself like, oh, what are all the reasons why they should buy my product? Which most people say, like, oh, I'm going to talk about my features, my benefits, all that kind of stuff. It's actually more helpful for you to ask yourself the question: what are the reasons why they wouldn't buy? Right? And the reason why you ask this question is because you start coming up with a laundry list of answers of like they wouldn't want buy because maybe they're intimidated, maybe they think it's hard, maybe they think it's too expensive, maybe they think the learning curve is too long, for me to adopt this. Maybe they're like, oh no, they're not another tool. Maybe they think you're not going to get an ROI. So I just make a laundry list of all the reasons why they wouldn't buy my product, right? And then I take that and I say, well, how do I address these pains? How do I address these pains in a form that allows them to kind of say, you know what, maybe I should give this a chance. Maybe I didn't see it in this way. Our job really is to change the perspective on our product. Right now they're not customers. I got to change their perspective so they become customers. So it all starts with that. And I'm a big believer in scripting, like to script, write down the words you want to say before you say them, because they're always going to sound better if you have put some thought into it, right? This is why when you watch a movie, the dialogue seems perfect and no one really talks like that in real life, but it sounds great because it's been scripted, it's been rehearsed, it's been shot many times, all that kind of stuff, right? So this is where the automated webinar comes in. So I love automated webinars because one, it's a list building tool. It allows me to grow my email list. And in the crowded world of social media, now Threads is out and there's this big deal about Threads. And you can't get people's attention and keep their attention on social media as you used to, right? And the algorithms are getting harder and harder. So the reason why I love email is because email is kind of our last sacred place in the digital world. Like it's our inbox. You have to deal with your inbox. You got to delete things. You got to go through things. You got to read, open, do something with email. You can't just thumb through it like a news feed. So really, it's a gold rush right now for people to grow their email list. And what I love about automated webinars is that people see it as an even exchange. I'm going to get a little bit of a workshop, a masterclass, something where I'm going to learn something that's interesting, and I'm going to give up my name and email address. This allows me, it gives me the key to start building a relationship with them. Now, this is just like somebody giving you their phone number or friending you on Facebook. Now I can start to get to know them a little bit and learn a little bit about what their problems are, their pains, so I can help them, so I can support them. And maybe that is we're not right for them, but at the same time, maybe down the line we will be. But I want to build a relationship so that when they are ready to buy, they come back to me. And this is the whole point of what I do is like the reality is that you can't make anybody buy anything, right? You can't force anybody to buy anything. And if you do that, it's going to cause chargebacks and refunds and bad reviews and all kinds of stuff. But what you can do is build trust with them so that when they're ready to buy, they'll come back to you, don't go shop around. So my point of the automated webinar is giving myself an audition, right? I need to give myself a chance so that they can give my name and email address, get some great value in a short period of time. And my automated webinars are between 20 and 30 minutes. Usually it's closer to the 20-minute side because I want to give them a quick win. And the point here is that I want them to just really have a moment where they just stop doing what they're doing and be like, oh, I got to pay attention to this. This is actually helpful. This is actually talking to me. And the way we do this is that we talk about those pain points, the reason why they wouldn't buy, what their problems are. I love writing a little bit about what keeps them up at night, what worries these people, what's bothering them, right? And what I found is very helpful is the better you could describe somebody's problem and their pains, the more they believe that you have the solution because you get them. So my audition is this automated webinar. I record a video that gets offered and it's coupled with a PDF. So the reason why I have a PDF that goes with the automated webinar, it's usually like a worksheet or a checklist or something they download. I want them to get invested in this process because it's like that IKEA effect. When you build something yourself, you feel a little bit more value towards it. So I want them to value this automated webinar. So I get them to download the handout. It's all automated with our software, and they just go ahead and they watch the video and they go along with the exercise. And it's very, very action oriented. So, for example, one of the big pain points people have is like, I want to run a webinar with WebinarNinja. I'm selling my product, so I'm gonna their pain point is like, I don't know what to do a topic on, right? I don't know what topic I should do my webinar on. I can do this, I could do this. And often the person that is creating the webinar is the worst person to choose a topic because you're too much in the weeds. You don't really understand, the beginner mentality. So one of the things I do in an automated webinar is I show them an exercise of how to do that, how to come up with a topic. So by the end of that 20 minutes, they're like, oh, I know exactly what to do. And my topic is going to be made and created really quickly. And what we recommend them, if you're wondering, is they crowdsource it. We get them to do an open Q&A webinar, do a live like office hours webinar, and on that webinar they just answer questions. And in WebinarNinja, they can submit questions in the questions area, and people could upvote questions. So the questions that are really, really high on the upvotes at the end of the Q&A are your topics. Those are the problems they have, right? You don't have to guess anymore, right? So we go through this exercise in the automated webinar. So it's like what I call a mic drop moment. It's like it's something like really powerful that gets them being like, okay, now I know what to do. I'm over the first hurdle. I know that there's potential. And then at the end of the automated webinar, we have a call to action, which is like, hey, if you want to learn more about how to do this, and one of my favorite lines in sales, and this is a gift for everybody who's listening, is the line with far greater ease. So if you want to learn how to do what we just taught with far greater ease, then XYZ, call to action. Because that's exactly what your product is that you're giving them a chance to implement their goal with far greater ease, with accountability, with help, with Q&A, with questions, with support materials, with recordings, whatever it is. It's just easier with you, right? You can take what we learned in the automated webinar by yourself, or you can do the easy way. So that's basically the structure of the automated webinar. So it's a landing page. They put their name and email address. After that, I like on demand or like immediate. They get the video right away. They watch the video about, I would say, 20 seconds into the video. After I do a welcome, I say, hey, there's a downloadable on the right. Download it right now. We're going to do this worksheet together. In 20 minutes, you're going to be able to nail your topic for your webinar, in this example. They go through that. The call to action says, hey, if you love that and you want to learn more and you want to build out the whole automated webinar system, I have a live webinar that is running every 2 weeks. Register right there. And that live webinar is like, hey, I have a program, and this is very important. Your calls to action have to be demo oriented, meaning they've learned something. They trust you now. If they click that link, you want them to click it if they're a buyer. So you have to frame it, say, hey, I have a program that is all about this. And we have one called the Automated Webinar Challenge. And if you want to learn more about that program, how much it costs, what it includes, how long it takes, sign up for this live webinar that I'm going to go through the whole thing, and you can ask all your questions there and learn how to sign up, right, for the next cohort. So the reason why I do this is because I want to filter out people that are ready to buy versus not ready to buy. Now, don't forget, I have their name and email address. So I can always go back to them later. I can always show them other value, invite them to other webinars. That's fine. But I want to now say, if you're on this automated webinar and you went through the 20 minutes and this excites you and this is something you want, and you want to buy something that's going to help you, then go to this link, register for the next live webinar. And that's a sales webinar that we do live.
Perfect. So just to make sure that I've got the sequence right, I think it sounds like step number one, you want to brainstorm a lot about why someone wouldn't buy, so you can get really good at thinking about, what's keeping them up at night and what those hot topics might be. So that might be step number one. The step number two, and maybe I got that slightly
Sure.
out of order. As you go through that, you might also consider running a Q&A webinar to the list again to further uncover what the real hot buttons are, what the hot topics are, and whether or not some of that initial assumptions that you have, if they were true and correct. And then after that webinar, you'll have much, or that Q&A session, much greater clarity around the topic that you might want to create a webinar on that is some form of lead magnet, as in it attracts the interest of your potential client, in that beginner's mindset. And in that particular webinar, you would have some sort of PDF interactive thing that they might be able to do. I'm assuming the first time you run that webinar, it's probably going to be live, and
I record it on my computer, and I make it an automated webinar. I don't have to do that. And I actually like to do that. And the reason why I like to do that is because one of the things that we teach our users and our students is that, again, we're trying to build trust here. So one of the best things you could do to build trust is just to be flat out transparent. So in the beginning of the actual recording of the video of my automated webinar, I say, hey, thanks for signing up for this automated webinar. Yep, it's automated, and I recorded this just for you, but I'm going to make it interactive. There's polls, there's a PDF I want you to download. So let's do this together. Come on. So right away, they feel like, oh, this is different. I've never been on an automated webinar where they actually say it's an automated webinar, right? So automatically you build trust by just getting in front of it. Second, you let them know that, hey, even though it's automated, I've built this with this in mind. And I've actually learned this from Nicole, who's my co-founder and wife. She went to New York Film Academy, and she has a film background. And it's very important to know your audience and know the purpose of what you're doing. I can get a lot more done by me and making it more concise and powerful and really punchy if I'm recording this, knowing that this person's going to watch this automated webinar, knowing my audience, versus me doing it live. And then they're going to have to watch a bunch of like, hey, what's going on in the chat and blah, blah, blah. Like, that doesn't really apply to them. There's no chat there right now because those people are not real, right? So the point here is that, like, I can make it a lot more powerful for my audience if I just cut to the chase and say, hey, this is automated. I recorded this for you. Let's do this step by step, and I'll get them to download. Did you download it? Great. Awesome. All right, let's open up the PDF. I share my screen. I show them, what the PDF looks like. Let's go to step one on the PDF, and let me explain what that is.
Yeah, perfect. So the structure for that webinar, there's some sort of intro, and then you get straight into, let's grab the PDF and let's start getting to work, and I'll work you through it.
Right.
Is there anything else before, obviously, you get towards the end and there's like the call to action of where to go next? But is there anything else you do there? Do you talk about yourself, the company at all, or you focus just in on solving the client's problems through this particular checklist or resource you've got?
I really believe in this statement that I learned in teaching. And the statement is, students don't care about how much you know until you show them how much you care. Right.
Yeah.
And so how does that apply to an automated webinar? So in an automated webinar, my job really is to say, hey, I have your best interest in mind. You are my number one priority, not my business, not my brand, not me being a silverback gorilla. Right. My job here is to just quickly give you what you want. And you signed up because of topic X. You signed up because you have back pain, and you said, I'm going to give you 3 back yoga poses that are going to cure your back pain if you do them on a regular basis, right? That's what you signed up for. If I'm sitting here spending 5-10 minutes on, talking about all my awards behind me and why I'm number one, you think you have to do this because a lot of the internet marketers do this, but really they'll look you up if you're good value, right? And some of the best people out there, it's just a really quick thing. I just say, hey, I'm the co-founder of WebinarNinja, and I have the URL on the bottom in the edit. And I just say, today I'm going to show you how to do this, XYZ. I'm Omar Zenhom, blah, blah, blah. And I just go right into it, right? They don't really care who I am, really. Right? Like, think about it. Like, all you really care about is the solution. When you Google something on Google and you click on the article and you read the answer of whatever it is, like, how many people live in Australia? And you click it and it says the population, right? Am I like really worried about what article it is and what's the source? And well, how long has this website been in business? And no, we don't care. Right. Yes. So we just want to give them the answer. So I'm really a proponent of this. of building that trust quickly, because again, people's attention spans, and especially the first minute or so, right? Like I actually talk about the content first. So I'm like, I talk about, okay, this is the problem that we're trying to solve today. You have back pain, I have back pain. I'm 6'5", blah, blah. Let me show you some poses. We're going to show you 3 poses. Let's download the PDF. Da, 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 da. All right. How did I get started in this? Well, I used to be somebody who hated yoga, but I started doing yoga 5 years ago. And now I started this institute called Yoga for Us. Let me show you how to do the first pose. That's it.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And then you walk through, and obviously you go through the exercise, they get the download, they can then get the quick win for themselves. And then how do you transition into that next step? I think you then mentioned you either have another webinar that you get them to join where you explore
Yeah.
more about the program. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about how that works.
So I am a big believer in spending as much time and energy on as warm as leads as possible. You want people to be as warm as possible, to be really ready to buy, where basically their only question is like, do you take Amex, right? That's
Yeah.
all I want them to be at. So the reason why I transitioned from the automated webinar to a live webinar is that now I get a chance to interact with them, and they can ask me questions, and it gives me another chance to earn some more trust, right? To show them what I've done, what I've built, all that kind of stuff. That demo webinar I talked about the program that we're selling. Okay. So the call to action is really just the transition. It's like, hey, today in the last 20 minutes, this is what we learned. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to take this to the next level, if you want to implement this with far greater ease, if you want a little bit more accountability, if you are a total beginner and you need some step-by-step guidance, then I actually have a program that I built just for you. It's called XYZ. Okay. XYZ is amazing because 1, 2, 3. And if you want to learn more about it, how much it costs and how long it takes, I have a live webinar that I do every 2 weeks. You can just click the link, and the offer is timed, and they'll see a link. You just click on that link and you can register for that next live webinar. I'll see you there. You can ask me any questions you want. And you can also tell me how you went with this exercise we did today. That's it. That's pretty much it. And then they go and they register for the live webinar. And then every 2 weeks, my automated webinar fills up the live webinar that you do every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever you like to do.
Yeah, perfect. And then for the live webinar, obviously you've let them know that we are here to talk about the product. So
Right.
they're arriving wanting to find out more about the product. What's the structure for that second webinar?
So the second webinar is basically me walking through why I built this product, the why, who this product is for, who it isn't for. I really am a big believer, again, to let people know, hey, you're talking about direct mail and direct response. One of my favorite strategies in direct response that I've seen in the past is like talking about what we're not. Like, and one of my favorite examples of all time is like this Italian restaurant gave this direct response copy of saying like, if you're not going to want to come here if you want a fancy waiter with a cloth on their arm and tablecloth on the table and menu items you can't pronounce, this is not the place for you. But if you like wholesome Italian food cooked by an authentic Italian mama with plastic tablecloths and unlimited white or red wine, then you're going to love our restaurant. So by admitting your faults, you actually build the trust of the people that you want to attract, right? So I do the same thing with our product. I always say like, hey, so we run these challenges that are like 3 or 5 days long. So, hey, if you want like a breezy course that you can jump in and out of and do at your leisure, this is not for you. This is for somebody who needs accountability, that by the 3 days, they want to be able to learn, implement, and put into action their business so they can get results quickly. Right. So even if you're not in that camp, that sounds, tempting. That sounds actually appealing, but it only sounds appealing because I contrasted it with the opposite. Right. So it's a great way to anchor. So in this live webinar, what I like to do is talk a little bit about the story of the why, because a lot of people can resonate with that. So I also often talk about like my teaching background. I make a joke about, I'm actually somebody on the internet that has a degree and knows how to teach. So you're going to learn from somebody that knows how to teach, and you're going to learn very quickly. And then we talk about, okay, this is the outcome you should expect from this program. Okay. This is very important. And the reason why it's important is because I'm not selling modules. I'm not selling videos. I'm not selling coaching. I'm not selling a community. I'm not selling software, right? I'm selling an outcome, right? And the reason why I'm doing that is because outcomes are a whole lot more valuable than a bunch of digital products. right? So if you say to somebody, hey, I'm going to give you the outcome of being able to get new leads and customers with this new sales pipeline, right? You're going to have a sales process. Most online businesses don't have a sales process. So it's like, if you want to install this sales process in your business so you can have leads and sales happening reoccurringly, so you're not wondering when your next paycheck is going to come in for your business, then this is a great program for you. That is, I'm selling relief. I'm selling the ability to have predictability in your business. That's what I'm selling. So if I say, hey, you're going to pay X amount of dollars for it, they're not thinking about, oh, I'm paying that much money for 3 days of training. It's not about the days of training. It's about the outcome. So I really like to stress the outcome, and I stress to them when they do their process is you're selling an outcome. And then we walk through and say, hey, this is what we do, and this is why we do it. One of my favorite phrases is so you can, right? We teach how to create a compelling offer so you can get customers with ease, and it'll be a no-brainer for them. Like, so you can is basically explaining why this is a benefit. This is a feature. This is what we do. Like, we have a module on XYZ. We teach XYZ so you can do this amazing thing in your life, right? And a lot of us, we forget the so you can. We just say like, hey, we got 14 videos on this and 20 videos on that. And by the way, we have live coaching calls. Why the live coaching calls? So you can never be stuck, so that I can kick you in the butt and you can be accountable, so that you can ask questions beyond just what the topic is. And maybe you have a question about pricing, or maybe you want to network with other people. So you can is very powerful. So we go through all these things, say the so you can, and then we talk about, hey, this is an investment in you. This is what this is what the investment is, how much it is. This is the deadline to start, because we have like cohorts. And here's the call to action. Here you go. And we often give some sort of incentive for those who are on the live webinar, so they get some sort of bonuses or something like that that come with signing up. And then that's basically, it's pretty straightforward. We just say, hey, this is what, if you do this right, this is what your life is going to look like. This is the after picture, just like in fitness. This is what you look now. This is what you're going to look after. And this is how much it costs. This is the investment of time and effort. And this is how to sign up. That's it.
Yeah, perfect. And that second webinar that you run every 2 weeks,
Mhm.
have you tried elements? No doubt you would have. I'm just curious to know how you went with, because you got a flow that you would follow for that second call. So have you tried recording that and then similarly having that as a pre-recorded? I mean, you still let them know this is what it is. It's kind of like,
Mhm.
hey, you've just watched the pre thing. By the way, I've got another webinar over here if you are looking, and you can watch this. Maybe the dynamics is a little bit different because you run the cohorts, but
Right.
yeah, I don't know if you've got any insight into that.
So in terms of taking the sales webinar and making it into an automated webinar,
Yeah.
so I tried that a few times, and unfortunately, it didn't yield the results I was looking for. And then I sat back and I started thinking. I was in my office. I was just like, "What's happening here? Why are the numbers not converting?" Da 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 da. And then I realized that I'm really skipping a step here, and it's prospecting. Like, in any sales process, like, sales is nothing new. Like, this has been, since we've been trading rocks with each other, sales has always been there, right? But there's got to be a point where you have leads, you bring people that might be interested, and then you have to prospect it to figure out, are these people ready to buy? Are they in the position to buy? Do they have money, right? Do they have the time? Do they have the expertise? Is the painful enough for them to take action? That part needs to happen before. And that's why the automated webinar beforehand, where it's just value, it's just trust building. And then it says, hey, if you are ready to take the next step, then I only want buyers on that webinar, because I want to convert as high as possible. Why? Because my time is limited. And if I'm going to do a live webinar, I want to do it with all the best possible potential customers as I can, people that are going to buy or are interested in buying or are just on the fence, right? So I don't like to skip steps, because whenever I skip steps, I often feel like I'm getting the wrong people in the room, right? I'm getting the wrong people in there that are not ready, or they're still not sure with me, right? I haven't built that trust yet. I haven't given that value. And in a demo webinar, I really am not giving them something that's in their best interest or something that they're interested in. I'm really selling a product. So it's kind of like, I don't have the trust level yet.
My question was more, you might still have the two webinars where you have
Mhm.
the first webinar, which delivers the value and then the trust.
Oh, you mean
And
the
then the
double up?
second webinar, they would jump from that into that
Yeah.
and then go, you know what? I want to find out more about this. I'm just curious if, yeah, not so much replacing or
Yeah.
pushing together.
So the reason why I insist on making the sales webinar live is because from a one session point of view, it converts the highest. Live converts higher than anything else. It's the closest thing than selling in person. So the reason why is because obviously they can ask questions and you can
Mm,
answer them. You can go back and forth. You can get them involved. You can use them as examples that you're going through. Like, so for example, this module talks about XYZ. Who has this problem in their business? John. Hey, John, what is the problem? Oh, XYZ. Yeah, we're going to dissect that problem and be able to solve it in this way, right? So I can actually apply these things. The second reason why I want to have it live is because of what my dad talked about. Is I need to ask questions. So one of the first things I do at the beginning of a live webinar is I say, what held you back? Why haven't you done a live webinar yet? What is your biggest pain point when starting this whole system? What is your biggest pain point right now in your business when it comes to sales? I want to hear everything, right? Why? Because when I do my demo's not the same every single time. I just address those issues. Everybody wrote their laundry list of complaints. I think it's confusing. It's hard. I don't want to deal with 5, 6 different software. I hate my landing page software because it's all buggy, blah, blah. Okay. So I have all these complaints. Then I go, all right, good. John says that he hasn't started webinars because he's not sure how to create a compelling offer, right? He has a great product and but he doesn't know how to put an offer together. I love this concern because inside our community in Ninja Town, we have 3 courses on how to create a great offer. And then there's a discussion below where you can ask questions and then you can throw your offer in front of the group and then they can give you feedback so that you have a process to refine your offer, right? So now, if that's John's only objection, they're like, it's a no-brainer. I don't have any reason not to buy anymore because that's been solved. But it only happens because I asked the question, and I can't do this in a recording.
yeah, that makes perfect sense. This particular system, it's really starting to present itself and make itself quite clear for me. Obviously, you've done this inside and out many times. So it's that first step is to get very clear on what the pain points are, where people are getting stuck, some of the challenges. From there, you may have a live Q&A that you do once to really engage with the audience to nut out what problem you're going to focus in on. Then after that, you create the resource and a little training that walks through the checklist in the PDF and really delivers high value. You then set up the tech for that webinar to be able to be delivered like effectively on demand. People opt
Mhm.
in and they get the bonus straight away. Off the back of that, every 2 weeks, you have some sort of live webinar. And we also covered, obviously, in that the free resource a little bit about the call to action at the end, which then moves them into the live webinar. You have a live webinar. Similarly, it's probably got a little bit of a structure where you can talk a little bit more about the why, the who, what you're not, what you get, so that you can, and then obviously introducing whatever the investment is, and then tailoring it based on the live audience that you've got. So then you'd be running that particular event live every 2 weeks. And then
Mhm.
off the back of that, you obviously introduce them into your products and services. And if you've got a cohort or whatever it is that you're selling, I think that particular system that you walked us through, you could see how that would work in any type of business. I mean, it makes particular sense in service-based businesses, coaches, consultants, educators, definitely all in that space. It's a bit of a no-brainer. But really, I think if you thought creatively, you could apply that to just about any business. Like, it's just about what is the problem that your target audience has and creating a nice little lead magnet to solve
Mhm.
that problem, get them into your world, and then move them into a discussion. So I don't know if they're sort of
Yeah,
in
let
the
me give you an
tail end.
example. Yeah,
Yeah, if you've got some examples, that would be
we have
great.
a user that she has an organic honey farm. She sells organic honey on her e-commerce store. So one of the pain points is that like people know the probably organic honey is going to taste good, but they don't really, honey's not like toilet paper or bread or milk. Like it's kind of like I got to have a reason to buy a lot of honey, right? So one of the things she realizes is that, oh, people don't really know the use cases of my honey. So her informational webinar was basically a 3-part recipe. So 3 recipes that she shared on how to like, here are these beautiful honey peanut butter cookies that you can, and it's just seasonal, like honey peanut butter cookies for the holidays. And then you can also do like honey wings because the Super Bowl is coming up next, and then she explains all these different recipes. And now they have a reason to buy the honey. Say, hey, everybody who buys, my package of honey, it's like 4 or 5 jars, all these different kinds of honey, smoked honey, all these kind of honeys, uh, will get my recipe book with it. So you can do these recipes that we talked about today, and it's kind of an incentive. And now they have a reason to buy, and they understand. Oh, but the brilliant thing is that over time, what she realizes is that I don't sell honey. She sells, you know, her people's families being impressed that you created these incredible honey cookies in Christmas. She sells, validation to the husband that is trying to be a better cook at home and feed his family, right? That is really what she said, and that's really what happens. Is like now they have the tools to like create this special little meal or special little treat, and I need your product so I can pull it off.
Mm-mm. So that's a good example because then that shows obviously the lead magnet makes sense, but I can't imagine her having a live webinar every 2 weeks to sell the honey in a limited offer on the back end of that. So yeah, is that an example of, look, the first part will work in certain businesses and maybe that second webinar isn't always a fit, or did she include that second part?
So what I just described was her live webinar. So she did that on live, and it was kind of like a live cooking show. And then her automated webinar was just more information about what makes her honey different, because really, she's in the commodity market here. So she tells a little story about like why the honeys are healthy and the way to take care of the bees and da da da. Da. And then she talks about like the benefits for them. Like, there's a scientific study that says, a spoonful of honey can help you boost your immune system, da da da. And then it flips to like, hey, if you want to learn more about fun ways to create honey, I got 3 great recipes that I'll be sharing next week. Go ahead and sign up for the live webinar. So the first one is kind of like just a lot of people are just curious. They stumble upon our website or stumble upon our Instagram, and they're like, what's so special about your honey? Like, why am I going to buy your honey? And that is the education part in the automated webinar.
Okay. So the automated webinar, which, initially we talked about the idea of, an interactive PDF or something. In her example, it's more of like information about it. And then it's like, hey, the call to action is if you want to attend a live webinar every 2 weeks, we get together and we talk about some different recipes and
yeah,
perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can really mix it up depending on the business. Have you got
And
any
a lot
other?
of it, a lot of e-commerce stores, they do kind of a similar thing where they have a little bit of an information. One of the examples I gave in a recent webinar was a watchmaker talks a story about how his great grandfather was a watchmaker. In the automated webinar, the heritage of watchmaking, why their timepieces are unique, da 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 da, right? And then every week they do basically a QVC style webinar where they feature 3 products, and each product is like a limited time offer during the webinar. You got to buy during the webinar. So it's very much like Home Shopping Network, where it's like, okay, and they show it on camera, the watch, and then they sometimes they share screen of the product page and they say these are the features and they explain these features. They go beyond what's on the page because sometimes they can't fill the page with a million things. And it's a lot of storytelling, a lot of like, we created this watch as a homage to, so and so of Nikola Tesla because of XYZ. My father met him at a trade show or whatever it might be. So the point here is that it gives them a chance, one, to remind their customers who bought before from them what's so great about their product. And then the other thing is that it gives another reason for people to tune in. people don't know what's going to be featured. Every week there's something new being featured. So let me just watch and see what's going to be featured. And that's the element of surprise, element of what's going to happen. And then you're going to get a special offer. It's only during that time, and it's the regular price on the site is going to be that price after the webinar.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe in the tail end, one final example. I don't know if there's any. I know we've kind of touched on honey, watches. Is there, yeah, something else? Maybe even in the service-based businesses.
Yeah, totally. There is a great company that does film work. So they do editing of films, book trailers, things like that. And what are the things that they do in this webinar? Obviously, this webinar is for people that are either looking for a video for themselves, or they are commissioned by their company to find a company to do this for their company, right? For their business, or create some sort of teaser or trailer for their product or service. Uh, so what they do is they actually walk them through the process. Hey, it's basically a sales call, and they say, hey, well, this is how it is to work with us. This is the first phase, second phase, third phase. This is how many revisions you get. This is and we're going to walk you through an example. Here's, Mr. Famous that you all know in this industry, Seth Godin. Here's his book trailer. Da 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 da. We went through all these steps with Seth. All of a sudden, you feel like, oh, I'm going to go through the same experience as somebody that I look up to, and they go through that whole thing. And that's the live webinar where they go through, so they can ask questions and figure out what's going on. As an information, they just talk about, like, what are the elements of a great video, whether it's, the script or the lighting or the character, or maybe humor or whatever it is. And they kind of get people thinking, because they're going to need to collaborate with those ideas. They can't just, come up with everything. So, and then they say, hey, if you want to learn about the whole process and what it costs and things like that, then go ahead and sign up for this live webinar.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. I love this system. If people want to find out a little bit more about you, is the best place WebinarNinja.com?
Yeah, WebinarNinja.com. If you are on our email list, or you sign up for a trial or anything like that, you'll see me on the next live webinar. I still do all the live webinars in my company because I'm a teacher at heart and I still love doing it. So yeah, you can get in touch with me there. Not super active on social, but if you want to find me on Twitter, it's at the Omar Zenhom. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Well, as to be expected, you delivered in spades today. I really appreciate that, and definitely uphold in my mind that you are one of the good guys. So if anyone's interested in learning more about Omar's work, definitely there'll be some links near this video. Check them out. And thank you so much for today, Omar.
Thank you.